So hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is something I'm so excited about. I'm so excited to get to post it and hear your guys' thoughts and feedback on it. Oh, I've been doing YouTube for so long that I love what I do, but every now and again something like this will come around and it feels absolutely just magical. I feel like all tingly and excited. So this week I got to talk to the wonderful Cynthia Summers, who is a costume designer, and she was the costume designer on The Last of Us. She's worked on a wide variety of projects throughout the years. She's a lot of recognition and notoriety behind her name because she's incredibly talented at what she does. So getting to talk to her was absolutely incredible. She was so graceful with her time. I mean, we talked for ages about everything and anything, from what it was like starting out in the industry to the different types of steps that you got to take to the creative process itself, down to things like how Joel's jacket was created, and it was amazing getting to talk to her. So I cannot say thank you enough to Cynthia for being so graceful with her time, being such an absolute sweetie, because she really is. You guys are going to see, you're going to get to watch the video. This lady is an absolute ray of sunshine. I don't know, there's something about talking to somebody who absolutely loves what they do that it's infectious. It's just like this inner light that comes out of them. I love it. I absolutely love it. Before we get started with the video, just letting you guys know, the link to my Patreon is down below, where I do a whole bunch of different reactions. There's live streams, movie reactions, a whole bunch of content going on over there. So the link to that is down below. You can also find the link to my Twitter and my Instagram in the description box below. I'll also link Cynthia's Instagram if you guys would like to go follow her. Her Instagram is amazing. She posts some like behind the scenes stuff or fun little tidbits here and there, so she's well worth following. I highly recommend going and following her over on Instagram. So anyway, I'm going to stop rambling and let's get into the chat.
Look at your background. Wow.
I'm a big collector of things. I'm a lover of stuff.
Oh, I love that about you. Wow.
It's a
I
bit
am so
daunting.
impressed.
I know.
I don't have anything representing here except you can see this jacket right here.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a jacket that an exec at HBO has had us break down to be exactly like Joel's jacket in the game. It's exactly the jacket.
Oh,
So it's just waiting to be shipped off.
that one item already outdoes everything in my background. You're there. Oh, I don't have anything except for this one very rare item. I have a mixture of things. There's figures, autographs, little trinkets from
Wow.
trips and holidays. I love collecting little souvenirs from absolutely
Aw.
anything and anywhere. Yeah.
Oh,
Um
that's so sweet. That's awesome. Well, I
yeah.
have something I could send you. I do.
Oh.
Maybe let me know where when we're done here. I have something I can send you. It's a
Oh.
surprise.
Oh, of course you don't have to at all. You don't have to feel obligated at all,
No,
but that would
I'm
be.
like I am so enamored with your dedication. That's just amazing.
Thank you so much. I am very patiently waiting for the line of merch to drop for this show. I have a few
Oh yeah.
little bits and pieces here and there from the game, from the merch line that the game brought out, but I am
Oh
very
yes.
patiently waiting for the show to drop the merch. And
Uh,
I might need to just throw out my bed and get another bookcase to make some
uh,
room, but listen, we have to make sacrifices. Anyway,
that's so
I
great.
didn't even introduce myself. My name is Kate. I'm
Oh,
Irish, if you couldn't tell. I
yes.
I have a YouTube where I do reaction videos, breakdowns, talk about the stuff that I love.
That's
So thank you
great.
so much for taking the time to sit down and chat. I very much appreciate it. I have so many questions. I cannot wait to hear your take on things. Okay, so just
Great.
starting off, if you would like to tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up in this line of work. I believe
Sure.
I read somewhere that you're from a dance background.
That's right. Musical theater.
Oh,
So,
theatre.
yeah. So let me see. Oh, gosh. Blah. Um, yes. So I started off my adultness, I guess, as a dancer, and that segued into musical theater for me mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and, I, as in a lot of the performing arts, especially at the sort of ground level of performing arts, dance is probably one of the most underfunded of the arts, I think, probably globally to some degree, as opposed to like music or actual theater.
Mm.
So while I was doing that, there was always the opportunity to be fixing costumes or creating or adding on to costumes. And things like that. So I kind of started off there, although way, way back, my mother taught me how to sew. So I kind of it was in my blood, I guess, if you will. So it was a bit of a natural segue to me for me. After I finished my career in dance, once I started having children um, at a young age, I started creating costumes for dancers as sort of something I could do from home or something I could do as a smaller project. And that business grew and grew. And I needed at some point to decide whether I wanted to stay with that and get a little education on it to see if I could make it bigger, what it meant if I had to move outside of the home, or if I could needed to actually create something real. So I went to fashion design school where I met an amazing bunch of people. And while I was there, there was a movie that came into town and they needed someone to build some tutus for this crazy scene they were doing. And I volunteered to do it. And it was my first experience on a set, my first experience working with a costume designer, my first experience with the film business in any kind of way. And I really did. I mean, I love film and I love theater, but I really didn't, as far as film making went, really didn't know what it took and what everybody did. And I didn't know about the costume designer, the props master, the production designer, the set decorator. I didn't know all of that. So I went and did this. I went to set to do the fittings. I just was hooked. I was hooked. I was just enamored with the whole process and mystified and I just wanted to be a part of it somehow. And I wasn't sure what that would be, but a friend of mine was in the business in the set decoration department, and she gave me the name of production designer that she usually worked with, and I very nicely uh, bothered him for about a year. And that
Okay.
was back before all the social media. So that was phone calls and letters and just kind
Yeah.
of, can I meet you for a coffee? All of that kind of thing. So I basically did that for about a year. And then he got an indie, and he asked me if I wanted to do it. And I said yes. I had no idea, not a clue. I couldn't read a call sheet. I didn't know how to set up a department. I didn't know how many people I really should have or what I needed, but I just dove in, and it was the most um, difficult thing maybe I ever did, because I, to some degree, had to pretend I knew what I was doing. And on the other hand, I had to be very covert in asking questions. So it
Yeah.
still looked like I knew what I was doing, but I just didn't understand the whole thing. And my set supervisor it was a long production. It was a movie called Double Happiness by Mina Shum,
Mm-hmm.
and it was Sandra Oh's first film, and a host of other actors. But it was, one of those opportunities in life where if you feel it, you should seize it. Because right up until that was 29 years ago. So cut to last year, 2 years ago, I guess. I'm still working with the same producer, Rose Lamb. She hired me on The Last of Us,
Wow.
and I have worked with her on Lemony Snicket and Altered Carbon and a bunch of other shows in my history of filmmaking. So it was a fortuitous moment. I grabbed it, and it basically has afforded me my future. So anybody who's looking to get into film, I would say, you got to go out and put yourself out there and take the opportunities, even if they're not all exactly what you think you want to do. You just don't know until you do it. And the film industry is so layered, and there's so many genres, and there's so many things to do within the department. You might start off and think, oh, I want to do costumes, and at some point figure out, oh, actually, I want to do props because that's way more fun, and I
Hmm.
don't have to deal with people as much. Because, if you're in the costume department, that's what you're doing. You are meeting and greeting and working with producers and actors and your, everybody else that's working on this project with you. So you really have to have a good sense of people
Hmm.
and a good sense of, I don't know, making feel comfortable, people feel comfortable. I mean, if you think about it in sort of a broad sense, a lot of times actors, if you have not worked with them before, will come in and often they're the first person they meet. The costume designer is the first person they meet on the production because they usually come into where fly into wherever they're working, and usually they come in with a week before camera or even crazier the day before. And so it's a really quick, let's get this done, let's get this done.
Hmm.
Costumes needs you right away. So they come in, they meet me, and they essentially have to get naked and get into a costume, and we've just met.
Yeah.
So really have to be able to, I don't know, find, I always like to try to find one thing in common with the person who's coming in, the actor who's coming in. So a lot of times it's my dog, Rudy. He's the greatest icebreaker, and he will come in, and everybody, most people love a dog,
Yeah.
and Rudy's a great host, and so that's a great equalizer for us, and then we can start and jump in and do what we need to do. So, um, yeah, I don't have a psychology degree, but it seems like most costume designers either do or just have inherently have that in their makeup, sort of, they're good people,
I feel
if you
like
will.
you would need to have that though in a way because, like you said, you're meeting so many people that you don't know, and that you instantly,
Hmm.
like you said, you're up close and personal, and either you
Yeah,
gotta rise to the occasion and crack a joke, or like that, bring the dog in. Um,
that's right.
it's
That's right. And that's right from, the people you're working with, the producers and directors as well, because
yeah.
often, I mean, if you're lucky, you get to work with, or if you want to, you work with a lot of the same people a lot of the time. But if you move around in productions, you're meeting directors and producers sometimes for the first time, or you're meeting them
Mm.
again, but the project's vastly different. So you really need to be able to be conversive and really be collaborative and really feel open and to other people to come in with their ideas, and really be not too sensitive and just really be able to take criticism, constructive criticism, hopefully, and just be a great collaborator. I think that's a big thing. You really need to be a great collaborator from the top on down, to the people you're working with within your department every day. So it's a lot of it is just sort of communicating with people so you can all make this great project that's a beautiful project at the end of the day, and make it
It's
quickly and financially responsible and all of those other things that factor into it.
it's funny that you mentioned being collaborative because that's a question that I had. If if you come up with a concept or an idea, or maybe you have the finished product in front of you, and somebody somewhere along the line just for whatever reason isn't vibing with this, could be the actor
Mhm.
himself, could be a stunt double, could be the director, producer, whatever. Is it a collaborative effort, or is it very much a case of back to the drawing board?
It can be all of those things. And usually, so for instance, if you've got something, okay, let's take Joel's jacket. Let's just hop right into the last one and talk about Joel's
Okay.
jacket, his iconic jacket that has like taken the world by storm.
Mm.
Um, that jacket was, obviously we're going from game to live action, and it's dangerous to do that. I just want to say that right off the top. I mean, you've got this built-in group of people who love the game. There's a built-in audience for this. And gamers and are people who, as you know, have invested interest in the games and the characters, and they want to see a real good, or the best or better actualization of the game into the live action world.
Mm.
So there's a lot of people already that have got a critical eye on what you're doing that are outside of the production. But without those people outside of the production, there wouldn't be this live action version or even the game. So you really have to do good by all of these people. So Joel's jacket, we knew right from the beginning that his jacket in the game was like I believe a Carhartt brand. Carhartt jackets in general are very stiff. They're made for work, outdoor work, work on ranches, work, working on heavy machinery. They're made to be extremely durable. So to break them down and make them look sexy is kind of impossible. And we wanted Joel to look, like every man, salt of the earth, but sexy. So
Yeah.
we kind of thought, well, let's not go with the Carhartt jacket because that's going to be impossible just to break that down and make it look like that. Let's build our own version. So it speaks to the game. It looks very close to it, but
Mhm.
it fits Pedro in a much closer way and is easy for him to work in and live in and portray this character. So, we started off with all sorts of versions of it. Pedro tried it on. He had his take on them. We had probably two versions of ones that we built as options for production.
Mhm.
Production being producers, directors, the network, and Pedro himself, of course.
Mhm.
One of them turned out to be one that Pedro really loved, and it took a long time to get there. It was a lot. There was a lot of variations on the theme. We kind of we did a drawing, we did a muslin, we did sort of a then we did one that was real all the way through breakdown. We presented it. Okay, let's try it on. Tried it on. Needed to tweak it. Go back to the stitching room to the tailor shop and sort of rework it a little bit. Back again. Tried it on. Sent photos. Everybody seemed to like it.
Mhm.
Went to location to set for him to try it on in person in front of Craig Mazin, our creative genius of this show, and see what everybody thought of it. Pedro put it on and he loved it. He loved it. We went outside the trailer. We had a bunch of people there who involved the tailor who we'd flown in, Pedro, his assistant, my assistant, Craig, his assistant. Um, I'm not sure if Neil Druckmann was there. I don't think so. And we stood around outside in the daylight to see how it looked, the color, how it moved on him. He did some like quick moves. He showed how he liked how close to his body it was. And everybody's reaction at first was great. And then the more that Craig Mazin looked at it, he didn't love the color of it. I believe it was the color. And so you at that point you have to listen to what he has to say about that because there's a reason he's saying that. And he's not new to this. So you want to take everything he says in,
Mhm.
why he's saying it, and he gave really great response. Sometimes you don't like it all. Sometimes you think, well, we can do this or we can do that to make it work. But you have to really trust someone like Craig, who's really knows what he's doing at the end of the day. And so even if I don't like it in that moment, or I think we can do something different to make this work because I know Pedro likes it, and that's a big part of it. That's a big part of getting this jacket on camera. Um, I have to take a step back. I have to get out of my own way and I have to listen to what everyone else says and then walk away with all that information and see what I can do. See if I can refurbish what we've got or if I have to throw it away and start from scratch all over again. And at that moment, that's exactly what I did. So that jacket it's hanging in the archives somewhere. We never used it. At that point, I turned to my shoppers and said, go out and get me every jacket that is similar to the one we just made and have them shipped in and let's see what we can do. When we wound up,
Wow.
we were trying to create this jacket for about a month. We had a really great lead time. At that point, we had, I believe, 8 days to camera. So we had to have everything shipped to where we were working remotely. Everything had to come in three different sizes. We had five options in three different sizes. We had to know also that we could, if we used any of these jackets, that we could get 30 of them from the manufacturer, um, because we needed that many to be able to pull off at least 3/4 of the season, and we probably had to get more to sort of back us up at the end and also get it into season two if it went for a season two.
Did you
So
say
all of these
30?
things factor in. 30. Yeah, 30, 30.
Oh,
So
wow.
everything, so they all came in, which was great. Then everything had to go into our breakdown, our aging and dying department. And before we even tried them on Pedro, because whatever we were going to promote, we had a limited time frame. We
Mm,
needed to know that we could de-wax them because all of these coats are waxed cotton, and they're amazing because they keep you dry, they wick away moisture, they do all these great things for real life. But to break it down and age and dye it and make it look old, the wax had to come off, or most of the wax, so that we could actually do that. So went through that process, tried it all on. We came down to two winners, and at the end of the day, it wound up being the Huckberry Flint and Tinder jacket that you see that he wears. That's right there. It looks different in color because we over dyed it. We took all the wax off. We made it dirty in places. We broke it down, like sandpapered the edges and
mm.
all the other amazing things that the breakdown team does. And that's how we wound up with that jacket. And that's a super long answer to your question of what happens if you have to go back to the drawing board.
No,
So
I did not expect there to be that many steps to a process for one
yeah.
piece, you know, and
Oh, and, and more. And this jacket we altered slightly as well. So we shaped it a little bit more to so it was a little closer to Pedro's frame.
mm,
And I think we did something to the lining, and but the rest of it remained the same. And then we just broke it down. So the color's different, the wear of it's different, and you can kind of see this kind of jacket is really great because it really conforms to your body, meaning that you sort of see the crease in the elbow, but it feels like it's shaped to the elbow as opposed to just a crease. Like it's a great piece. I love it. I love it. It was a really amazing choice at the end of the day. Um,
me too. I love it too. Big fan. Huge fan. um you mentioned something about the fit there. I'm kind of jumping all over the place with the questions
that's
because
okay. Yeah.
um
I see my light changing here too, so I hope I don't fade right out. The sun is coming out.
no worries at all. My camera changes saturation depending on how close I am to the camera too, so no
Yes.
worries.
Yeah.
So you mentioned just kind of costuming as a concept. They can help world build a character. It can help establish a date, time, where you are, what's happening. But they can become so synonymous with a character that you can't tear them apart. You know, I mean,
Yes.
in TV, if you're talking about someone like Joel, like you said, the jacket, or for me, if I think of Joel, I think of the denim shirt. I don't know why, but to
Right.
me, that's Joel. Uh, if you're talking movies, Die Hard, you think of the white vest, you know,
That's right.
or
Yeah.
music, the Beatles, you think of the matching suits, or Nirvana, you think
Yeah.
of the cardigan,
Correct.
MTV
Yeah.
Unplugged.
The cardigan. Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, you're going into a project that already there's a baseline, already there's source material that you could draw from. And yeah,
Mhm.
that's daunting, but at the same time, I imagine it's fun getting to recreate, like down to Sarah's t-shirt, getting to
Yeah.
recreate and replicate from the game and take inspiration, but also take creative differences. Was there
Yes.
anything
Definitely.
that you were absolutely determined to lift straight from the game outside of, you know, the jacket or the bigger, more iconic pieces? Was there anything that you really
Yeah.
wanted to slip in?
Um. I mean, obviously things like Sarah's t-shirt, that was important. Ellie's t-shirt, the sunset t-shirt,
Mm,
with the palm trees, that was really important for us to translate into the live action world. Um, Joel's plaid or flannel green shirt, that was important. So there were definitely a lot of important beats that we definitely wanted to take from the game to live action to keep the connection.
mm,
Because, as you say, when you watch the game, you identify Joel with this denim, Chambray sort of denim shirt that he wears. And for you, it's that. For a lot of people, interestingly, for Joel, it's been the green plaid shirt. And
yeah.
for me, it was the denim shirt. it was the denim shirt and the jacket that really sort of, that was Joel for me. For Ellie, it was definitely the iconic sunset shirt with the
Yeah.
palm trees. That for me was Ellie. And I think that maybe for Neil Druckmann, the mauve, the beautiful color, the mauve, the band shirt, the for sorry, for Sarah. I think that might have been it for him. And that has a story that you might have already heard where the name of the game, Helican Drops, was something that his daughter, who was, I believe, 2 years old at the time, had called her one of her stuffies, one of her teddy bears, I guess, or stuffies.
Mm.
And he thought that was a great name for a band. So that's how the band got its name. So I think that he might have some real connection with the band name, the the design of the band, and the t-shirt and the color itself. So I think that those kind of things were important for behind the scenes reasons,
Mm.
reasons that I knew of that maybe fans don't know or they do now. But um, as far as, then there were things like Frank and Bill, or Bill and Frank. That story, oh my gosh, what an episode. It's my favorite episode. I think everyone knows that. I can't stop talking about it.
Same.
It's my favorite episode. I mean, it's an episode you can watch. It's a standalone 1 hour if you want to watch something that's really touching
Yeah.
and, you know, down to just the humanity of it all. It's like a standalone. It came at the perfect it's the perfect timing to drop that episode into the series as well, because episode 1 and 2 kind of lay the ground for the story. If you haven't played the game, you can just watch this and you'll get it if
Mm.
you watch 1 and 2. But it's heavy. I mean, it's a lot to take in. There's action. There's, you go from 2003 to 2023, the devastation in 2023, the loss of some of the characters along the way. It's a lot to take in. So having Bill and Frank's story drop in episode 3 was a moment to catch your breath, but it was so well placed. It was the perfect
Yeah.
moment for everyone to realize the humanity during an apocalyptic moment. That we remain human, that our human story continues, and what it takes for some people and what they find as almost a gift during the worst times.
Mm.
So anyway, Bill and Frank, what a great episode. What a great couple, Nick Offerman and Murray. A couple of amazing actors to work with. But Nick's look, or Bill's look, he was, bunker man. He was like end of the world man. He's a survivalist. So what the one thing that we took from the game with that was of course he's heavily armored because he is a survivalist. He lives underground.
Mm-hmm.
His bunker is full armament underground. Um, we wanted to we in portraying him in portraying Bill Offerman in this Nick Offerman, sorry, as Bill, because they're one and one. We didn't want him to look like as heavily armored as he was in the game. We wanted to be able to see the humanity in him, and we just felt like that maybe starting him off with like the gas mask and everything else as he is in the game would just be too hard, perhaps, to get to, to see him for the human that he was
Right.
right from the get-go. We didn't want it to seem like this guy, and then Frank comes in, and then all of a sudden this big change. So
Yeah.
we kind of gave all of the armament to the props department to put on the wall and surround him in, as
Yeah.
opposed to putting it on his body. So we paid homage to him in the game that way, but then we also adapted it to what made more sense for the way we were portraying him in the story in episode 3, if that makes sense. It's just kind of, we needed to see the man more and less of what, all of this gack that he was wearing, that he wears in the game. So um, that was a little, that I guess that's a good example of, taking a beat and a note from the game,
Mm.
but kind of making it our own so we could actually realize it and actualize it on a human being, on an actor within our environment, I guess.
No, I totally get that. I think it's funny that you say that because I didn't even notice that or interpret it that way. But now that you say it, it makes
Right?
total sense. You're still staying true and keeping
Yeah.
the essence, but just in a different way. And I think
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
thing I really loved through doing research to formulate these questions to make them make sense. One thing I've noticed is you really use outfits and characters as, or outfits of a character almost as storytellers in themselves. So
Yes.
one thing that I loved, because I'm an absolute softie, it doesn't take a lot to make me cry. One thing I loved is there's a very simple scene. It's early enough on. It's just after Tess dies, so I want to say it's two or three. It could also be four though. It's just before she says to Joel, it's not my fault what happened or whatever. But
Oh, yes, that's way later. Yeah.
she has his jacket over her lap, and just from
Hmm.
that one thing, you get it. You get that he cares about her. You get exactly how he feels about her. Or him taking, was it Frank's shirt he took? It was the green plaid.
Yeah.
Small things
Yes.
like that. It
Yes.
speaks volumes, especially from a character that isn't a big talker. He doesn't really
No.
like
Exactly.
to verbalize. I love
Right.
how the costuming in small little moments like that were used, or something as simple as with Ellie in particular, and I loved this. Now I could be way off the mark with this, but the first jacket, or one of the first jackets we see, turns out to be her mom's, and then it's the green, isn't it? The green, or the
Yeah. It's the green army jacket, the military
that's the word.
jacket. It's,
That's the word I was
yeah.
looking for. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Maria later
Yeah.
gives her a jacket too. And one thing I
Yes.
noticed is neither, I don't know, was this intentional? And if it wasn't, I'm going to feel like an absolute idiot for bringing this up.
Oh,
But both
no,
of
no.
them, both of them were slightly too big on her, and it just made her look smaller, and it made her look, because it's so easy to forget that this is a kid. She's still just a
Yeah.
child, and it
Yes.
just,
No.
with
No, you're
details,
right on. You're right on. And um, those kind of observations by audience makes me so happy because you're right on about all of that. And it's really important. It's important in two ways because you don't want things to jump out at you and knock you over the head. I mean,
yeah,
sometimes we do that because we have to tell the story immediately and you need to get it right away as an audience member. But really, the beauty of filmmaking is exactly that. If you can tell a story through subtleties that the audience may be taking in and seeing as a whole, and so they're getting it's almost like a different kind of dialogue. So it's
exactly,
a
yeah.
visual dialogue, and if you're hearing the visual dialogue without seeing all the sort of points being hit along the way, then you're taking in emotionally this beautiful story or terrible story or whatever the story is you're trying to tell
Mm-hmm.
without a verbal cue. It's a visual cue, but you're not really getting it right away. And this is the great thing about streaming. You can go back and see it again as many times as you want. And and then maybe at that point you can pick it out and go, "Oh," or maybe you saw it right away and wow, that's amazing. But that's what I love is that, as an audience member, you're seeing this unfold and you're feeling these feelings and you might not even know why, or you might not be able to sort of um, you know uh, um, get it. um, you might not be totally understanding it, but you're feeling this thing and you're in it.
Mm.
And I think it's all of these things that bring you into it and take you on the journey that is so beautiful. And then if you do recognize it, well, that's amazing because I'm so happy that you notice all the hard work of all the thought behind it, right from the writing on down to the, collaborating between the props department and costumes or the makeup effects and costumes, or any of the visual effects and costumes, any of the departments that kind of collaborate together. Um, that's our reward that the audience is getting and seeing these things. Um, and even if it's not even if it's not the right answer, it's not a test. But even if it's not the right answer, you're getting something out of it that we are trying to put out there. So that's
Yeah.
as a filmmaker, that's what you want. That's what you're because everyone is going to experience anything that's on film uniquely because there's a story and people will talk about the story and did you get that or did you see this and oh this is what that meant, but still you're taking it in yourself and we all sort of manifest things differently. So, there's one story, but there's a millions of sort of variations on the thought of that story. So again, a long rambling
No, I love the rambling. I love the rambling answers. Don't worry at all. You're not pushed for time. Are you okay? Are you okay time wise?
No, I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Perfect. So staying on the topic of kind of smaller details, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna lie, and I'm not gonna say I picked it up first time because I didn't, but upon rewatching, one of my favorite tops that we saw on somebody was from the little clicker girl in, I think was it episode 5? She's in the back of the car, and
Episode 5,
she's wearing the Blues
Blue's
Clues.
Clues.
That
Yes.
was my
Yes.
show as a kid, and that's what I mean all along. You see these creatures, you think just kill them, stab them in the head, whatever. They're monsters, they're infected. But that one
Yeah.
little moment, she's just a child, or she was just a child, and it really humanized her.
It, everything you just said. That was the intent. I knew that someone else was going to ask me about the Blues Clues, and I went back to Craig Mazin, and just to make sure that he didn't have some other intent behind the Blues Clues T-shirt, because it was his idea.
Oh,
And he said exactly that. It could have been some other children's iconic graphic that we see there. For him, it was something that resonated with him for whatever reason historically. But he just wanted the audience to see that in a time of a pandemic, or an epidemic, or a world war, or any kind of war, no one is exempt from being touched by the tragedy that's happening around them. That this child that's wearing this Blues Clues t-shirt with her pajama bottoms
yeah.
and her bare feet was probably infected while she was sleeping in bed. And he just wanted to say, just wanted, as you said, to humanize it, to sort of make it feel like, it could be you, it could be me, it could be our neighbor, it could be our mother or father, it could be someone across the planet, but it but that it could be anybody. And that makes it more tragic, that makes it more human, that makes it more relatable, I think, for all of us when we're watching this. And I think that's the great storytelling of the game and of the live action adaptation, is that, as soon as you can make something that you're watching as a filmmaker, as soon as you can make it relatable to the audience, it makes it more real. So even if you're trying to say we could be infected by cordyceps and this could actually happen or not, if you humanize it, the audience feels more connected,
Yeah.
and that makes the probability of what you're trying to say in your visual story more real. Like, maybe that could be real. Maybe, it gets people thinking, gets you thinking and feeling about what's happening, as opposed to just
Yeah.
watching it for, like, I don't know, for monsters on the screen, or,
Yeah.
the science of mushrooms, which, by the way, does exist. This sort of invasion of cordyceps does exist in nature now. It doesn't exist
Unfortunately,
in
I know.
human. Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, I know, since I watched the show, all of my targeted ads and my For You, if you go to your home
Yeah.
screen, all the For You news articles are about, like, oh, what is this fungal mushroom we need to worry about? And I'm like, stop it!
Yes.
I don't want to read about that.
And I'm not a scientist, so who knows how this could change or not. The good news is our core body temperature is too hot to be a host for this kind of invasive mushroom, cordyceps. I know there's other weird fungal things that exist actually in hot climates
Yeah.
with humans that is really kind of awful. But as far as being infected by a cordyceps mushroom like this, it just can't happen right now. So we're good for now.
Yeah, well, even if we did, we have one season. We have one season, we have the blueprint. We should be half all right. We'd live at least a year, hopefully.
Yes.
As long as we have access to
Yes.
Wi-Fi and streaming, we could be fine.
That's right.
Um,
That's
but
right.
to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about the weathering or the wear or tear of a costume, obviously
Yeah.
it's used in a literal way that the character's been through a journey, they've been through something, but also it can reflect their mental state, their mental well being deteriorating throughout the course of, in this case, a show, throughout the
Yeah.
course of the episodes. But what is the distressing process like in regards to something like that? Do you make it like if it's a jacket, do you just make duplicates of the jacket and then go to town destroying them, or do you start with the bones of the coat and destroy it as you go?
That's a great question. So it can be different and it can be
Mm-hmm.
varied. Let's just take the jacket as a for instance, or even the green plaid shirt, because that plaid shirt stays. So this jacket and the shirt and that green plaid shirt, the going back to the
Okay.
jacket has a longer shelf life on the show than any of the other pieces that Joel wears. So he starts off in the jacket and he ended the season with the jacket. So if you think about that, so we get the jacket. Um, in this instance, we didn't build it from scratch. We bought it as a retail piece.
Mm-hmm.
It comes to us. We need to first of all do tests on it, because in order to do things to distress it and to um, take color out of it, it has to go into a pot of boiling water. So, if you take any garment and put it in a pot of boiling water, a number of things can happen to it. So for instance, if it's this cotton shirt, it would probably shrink, or shrink just one way, which is even worse. It might just shrink up. It won't shrink sideways. All the color might come out of it. Color might come into it. The print on it will probably lift right off and go away. You'd only have a shadow of it behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stitching might come apart. Um, it might wrinkle like crazy, and because it's already been treated in a way that we don't know, because it came from a factory that could have put sizing in it or put a product on it that we're not aware of. In any case, you don't know what's going to happen to it. So we do samples. We throw it into a pot of hot boiling water and see what happens to it first. That might include over dyeing it, so putting dye in it. Um, the breakdown team, led by Sage, love it. Um, did such an amazing job. They worked so hard on this show, and they were the most critical part of my team, I would say, from start to finish. Um, so in any case, I digress. So you get this coat, you do things to it to see what happens to it, and then you determine what you want and need to do to it in its first inception, as we see it in the show. So when we first see the jacket on Joel, it's he hasn't gone on the journey yet, or he's been living through, well, he's lived through 20 years
Mm-hmm.
of this of the end of the world. It all happened in 4 days. um, and so the jacket is something that he gained along the way. So it's probably already belonged to someone. So it's gently lived in. So we needed to take this brand new jacket and make it look like it was gently lived in. So we need one for Joel, for Pedro. We also need a backup for him. We usually do three, so that if on any given day, from elements or anything while we're shooting, anything happens to the jacket, we have backups, and we have enough backups for him in that one way, gently lived in, to sort of get us through to the next version. But then he has a stunt double. Then
Yeah.
he has also a photo double that sometimes works in front of the camera. And he also has a stand in who stands in for him when they're doing lighting and whatnot. So those other three people, actors, also need a jacket. They also need doubles on that jacket for the same reasons, in case all of a sudden it starts to pour rain, or and they're standing out there, or the lighting change, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So the number there is, that's 12 jackets, just just in one version of it. The
Mm-hmm.
next time we see Joel, he's been through, let's say he's been through the Boston Museum, where they ran into the infected, the fireflies who were infected and dead
Yeah.
on the floor, and there's like greasy stuff everywhere. There's blood everywhere. Some of that's going to get on the jacket. Then he has a fight. Then they run through the bush. Um, so stuff happens to the jacket as the jacket goes along in the story. So
Yeah.
each sort of version of the jacket gets dirtier. So then we need to take a new jacket that was gently lived in and put more product on it, whether it's a hole, whether it's more dirt,
Right.
whether it's a rip, whether it's some blood that's going to live on that jacket for the rest of the season. But because we don't shoot in our episodes in order, which means we have episodes 1 through 9, we actually shot 10, but two of them became one.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't shoot them in order, we have to keep all the jackets in their version. So if we have a gently lived in jacket and we have 12 of them, we have to keep those. So we store those as they are once we've moved on from that version and get into the
Gotcha.
next level of breakdown,
Yeah.
all the way down to, you know, completely filthy. He gets stabbed in the gut,
Yeah.
blood all over his green shirt, blood all over the jacket. And then we're in winter and he actually keeps the jacket. But in any case, my point being 30 jackets or more, because each version of breakdown or blood or distressing on each jacket, we need at least 12 versions and we have to keep them that way in case we also go back and do reshoots or
Ratios.
have to do inserts or second unit shooting. So we have to keep all those pieces. So we have to have that many, 30 or more of each piece that you see on camera. Um, to get us through all the episodes and to, make sure we have enough going into a second season.
Yeah.
Because Flint and Tinder, or sorry, Huckberry, it's a Flint and Tinder jacket made by Huckberry in case Huckberry doesn't make that jacket anymore.
Yeah.
Because if they don't make the jacket anymore, or if they, then we're screwed. I
Yeah.
guess
I can
no
imagine.
better word. Yeah. So that's everything they wear, right down to the t-shirts they have underneath everything, all the layers of clothing that you see, their shoes, their boots. Um, it's a lot of. It looks like, I think Joel in the whole season 1 had, I want to say, maybe 5 different looks, 5 versions of his look. And but so that seems simple, if you aren't involved in film and costuming, that would seem simple. Okay, 5 of those, and you need a couple extras, blah blah blah.
Mm.
But actually, you need 30 of every single piece that he wears
God.
as you go through, and that's every character on the show, pretty much every character, all the characters that see a lot of action, or see a lot of action in one episode. They're guest actors that come in for the episode and die in that episode. um they're blown up, there's stunts, there's everything, or they're characters that go through multiple episodes. So
Mm.
pretty much everyone's got a giant closet of one thing.
That is a huge workload, especially because you said that you don't always film in order. So,
Yes, and that's normal for a series. A lot Most don't film in, or at least a lot of them don't film in order, because for instance, for The Last of Us, it was very location heavy, so we
yeah.
would and make it into Jackson, Wyoming, or um, sorry, little mind blurb there. We'd make it to the town that we need to be in. So, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm rambling and I've lost my
You're
train of thought.
fine. Don't apologize at all. You're fine. There's nothing worse than when your mind goes blank and you know what you're searching for, but you can't find it.
That's right, right,
You're
right.
fine. Don't worry at all, at all.
Yeah, we need lots of options. We had 5 costume trucks, so that's 5 53-foot trailers that came with us everywhere. And we shot, I guess 75% of what we shot was on location, so not in a studio, but outside in the elements. And we had 5 huge trailers we took with us everywhere because we had so much, so many variations on the theme that we just had to have with us,
Yeah.
depending on what we were going to shoot. And on the note of, oh my God, I feel like I was picking up your accent a little bit there. On that note, which is brilliant and so charming, by the way.
Oh, thank you
Um,
very much.
but on that note, we were talking about, I think, the costume being time and place and telling the story on its own without us having, a banner at the bottom saying, now we're in Jackson,
Yeah.
now we're in Boston. Um, the background performers who are all the people that you see on any production that are all the people in the crowds, the crowd scenes with all the crowds in the back.
Hmm.
Um, in North America, we call them background performers. All of those people, if you think about The Last of Us, the hundreds and hundreds of people that you see in every episode, in every town that Joel and Ellie wander into, had to tell the story of time and place. They had to say where, visually, where they were in North America, in America. And because a lot of the story is Joel and Ellie. That's two characters. They have peripheral characters that are usually with them in each episode. Maybe there's five, but the majority of the storytellers in the scene are the background performers, and there's hundreds of them, and they all have to be dressed. They all had to be dressed in the same way. If anything happened to them, they needed multiples. They had layers and layers because a lot of our story takes place in winter.
Yeah.
So we went from one winter town to another winter town, but they couldn't look the same because they needed to be different places. So a lot of storytelling in the background performers, and I have the utmost respect for them. It's a hard job because they're essentially non-speaking roles. They have to emote just without saying anything, unless there is a scene where they are, like um, when we're in Kansas City, they're chanting those big crowd scenes.
Yeah.
But for a lot of the time, they're actually miming or and that's a production thing. As soon as someone speaks, you have to pay them more. So all the background performers generally are miming. They can't be recorded unless they're upgraded. So I mean, these people, these act, and they're actors. They're actors. So I just have so much respect for them because they need to really tell the story. They really need to be present. Their days are long. A lot of
Yeah.
times they come in and they go through the process of hair and makeup costumes. Some days they're not even used at all. Some days they wait 6 hours until they get in front of the camera. They're
Wow.
usually the people out in the elements, standing out there all day long in the snowstorm. I mean, amazing. We couldn't storytell without them in film. 100%. We couldn't storytell without them. They're just everywhere I go. I've just the utmost respect and gratitude for background performers. Hi, everybody.
I'm sure they'd be delighted to hear that. Although I
Yeah,
imagine it's a bit unnerving walking on the set and everybody's just emoting and talking, but they're not saying
yes.
anything.
I mean, there's a lot of variables for that. I mean, it's sound. If the actors are mic'd and or if there's a boom following them,
Mm.
you can't be hearing all these other conversations, whether they're actually a part of the story or just two people having a quiet conversation
Yeah.
together. I mean, everyone has to be quiet. So there's a lot of other, necessities that go into that of them being quiet or mute or miming. But yeah, a big part of it is just then they become an actor, like an actor on paper, and
Yeah.
it's a different pay scale. So
Yeah, I remember reading about that there's different pay scales depending on what kind of role you play in the background.
that speaks to the corporate necessity of filmmaking, I
Yeah.
suppose. Before anybody gets into making a film, there has to be a budget, and someone has to pay for it. So there has to be a corporate entity that sort of manages it. And that's always been the sort of rub between the creative process of filmmaking and the business of filmmaking. And
Mm.
that will never go away. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't have one without the other. So it comes down to it hits us on so many levels. But if you're talking about background performers, yes, if you think about the crowd scenes, if you think about paying one actor to be in a crowd, that's one budget, that's one paycheck. But when you see all the crowds in the crowd scene, whether it's contemporary or period or sci-fi or whatever it is, whether people are wearing their own clothes or whether they're being actually costumed from head to toe, um, it's different pace. All of that factors into how you pay the background performers. And there needs to be a place to keep these people the days they're working. So you need a big facility, tents. That's when you see all those big tents,
Yeah.
warm tents to keep people in, or large buildings or gymnasiums, or you know warehouses that you have to, you know keep these people while they're not working, to sort of to house them while they're not working, to feed them, to,
Yeah.
it's really complicated. And I want to say it feels like a lot of the times it's not always fair. Um, but I think the people that make this, the actors that make background performing a part of their the way they make a living and their life, that appreciate it. They're sort of, they know the ins and outs of it. They know how to make it work for them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they know what they should be asking for, because a lot of times it's just so many people in one small space in a day. Now we're all walking to set, and to get that many people to set is like, whether they're shuttling them in vans or whether it's a walk to set, which a lot of times it is,
Mm.
it's just a big crowd. It's hard to move crowds around. So,
It's a lot of moving
yes.
parts. A lot of
It's a
moving
lot,
parts.
a lot of moving parts. Yes.
um, to touch on something you mentioned earlier about color and coloring. Like you said with the jacket, do you have to make different versions depending on if it's a night shoot versus a day shoot, or if you're out in the elements versus indoors? Because I imagine all that would affect how something looks on camera.
Totally. And that's another good point. Wow, you got some good questions today.
Thank you.
That's another good point. um, and we don't always change for that. What
Okay.
does happen a lot is the lighting will change. And so the lighting will actually change to facilitate that, because it's not just the costume, it will be the set.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be, or a car, or it will be, another moving part that's in the scene. And sometimes lighting will change to facilitate that. But a lot of the times we don't change it because, if we're going from day to night and we're exterior, for instance, we want to show the reality of that. We want to show that, this white shirt in the daytime will appear much more white than it will in the night. Or actually, we will tech it, which is a term we use for making something, not changing the color, but changing the intensity. So, for instance, the lighting you have today and the lighting I have today, I have only natural lighting today, and I'm incredibly backlit, which is a terrible thing. Unless you want to create a shadow. If you're
Yeah.
trying to create a shadow person, it's great. But if you're trying to see someone properly from the front, it's terrible lighting. But it's all I had today. So I'm kind of backlit, which makes my t-shirt, which may be probably as white as yours, but it
Mm.
makes it look kind of dull. And so when we are shooting at night, we don't want things to flare out. We don't want whites to flare. So we will tech a white shirt, meaning we will put it through a dye bath, either a cool tech or a warm tech, depending on what the DP wants, the director of photography wants or needs for his lighting, or their lighting, to make it look still white. It still will appear to us to be white, but it won't be as hot as your shirt is right now. And I'm
Yeah.
guessing that you've got a ring light or something, so
Yeah.
it's really lighting you up beautifully. But it's also making your top very white,
Yeah.
which on in a night shoot would be like,
Ridiculous. It's
people
too
would,
much.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would be to look at. All we can see is this white t-shirt walking across the frame. So teching is a big thing that actually happens on all productions. And it happens in just, like sitcoms and day-to-day, half-hour sitcoms, where the lighting, where whether it's three cameras and stage lighting, or whether it's outside. And yes, all those things we take into consideration. So that kind of color change happens all the time.
Mm.
Actually changing the actual color, like if it's a green, um, may happen sometimes, and that will be a choice. That will be a choice by the director and the director of photography. But more often than not, we just kind of rely on the DP to change the color, or the lens, or soften it, or harshen it, or we just go with the naturalness of it all. So, your white t-shirt appears like this in the bright daylight, for instance, and mine will appear like this in the night,
Yeah.
kind of thing. If
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. No. I totally get that. It's just from doing this, I know that the ring light changes how everything looks on camera. So I just
Yes.
I wondered, when it comes
Yeah.
to film or TV, is it the same for you? And do you have to kind of make allowances for that? And it would make sense to change the
Yeah.
light instead of adding more to your workload with all the duplicates and
Yeah.
replicas.
Yeah. But that's not always the intent either. Uh you have to think about whether you're doing it for a technical reason, like too bright of a white t-shirt
Hmm.
in the night, or if it's because you want if you're going to be actually changing the color of the shirt in the scene, but then that's more of a visual effects moment. But in order to do that, we would have to facilitate with something that is generic enough in the palette that, or it's green screen or it's a green screen shirt, that visual effects, this is a whole other thing, but visual effects can actually change the color of that shirt either 100% the whole time in the scene, or have it kind of moire, or have it um, sort of yeah, change colors while the action's happening. So that's a whole other thing, though. That's a whole other thing.
I
That's
was
another
lucky
part of
enough.
camera of film 101.
I totally get that. I was lucky enough. I got to chat to Aaron McLean, who was the VFX supervisor for The Walking Dead, and some of the stories that he told
Yes,
me about what you have to do in post. I mean, look, I
yes.
to go on a tangent for a minute. I studied art in school, and I loved art appreciation, which was the film and
Yes.
TV side of things. And I remember I studied The Hobbit, so that was Anne Maskery. She was the head of costuming on that, and I just
Mhm.
so much love and work and blood, sweat, and tears goes in behind the scenes to make it what it is that I feel isn't always as appreciated as it should be. So I'm just gonna say that you guys are absolute wizards with some of the things that you pull off, for real. Um, but I always have had a love for the more artistic side of projects, which I guess was partially instilled by my art teacher. Hello, Miss O'Brien, if you're watching. Um, I can't imagine the amount of work and effort that goes into something like that, especially somebody like yourself who you might have multiple projects on the go, or as soon as you come out of one, you're going into another.
Mhm.
Do you
Yes,
get
yes.
downtime between projects, or is it a case of as soon as one wraps, you're on to the next?
As you sort of I would say that at the beginning of my career, I'm probably like halfway through it. So I would have, sometimes I was doing multiple projects. That's really difficult to do though, and you really need to be working with your producer, and hopefully um, that was back in the day of when we had movies of the week, MOWs, where there were like TV movies that we were making. So it would be for the same producer, and we were kind of rolling from one into the other, meaning we would still be shooting one, but we would be prepping the next one. So we weren't shooting the next one, but we were
Yeah.
prepping it. That still happens somewhat today, but not as much, I don't think, for most of us. Um, Definitely there is, the juggling of, when this project ends and when the next one begins. Sometimes there's an overlap. A lot of times, designers will come into a show with the caveat that their agent will put out, that they'll negotiate that, but I may have to leave early because I have another project that I'm
Mm.
already signed on to, and you know, if this project is slated to go at this time, I could maybe push or pull a week or two here or there. And then sometimes two projects get pushed, so then you're fine.
Yeah.
There's no overlap. But I have to say, as I've gotten older in my career, um, I try to have time off in between. After we finished wrapping Last of Us, I we had a month off, which kind of sounds like a lot, but it's not much time at all to sort of debrief from the project you've just been on for 15 months and out, away from home, to kind of come back home and then, get into your next project, which is in your hometown, which is great. But then you've got the added thing of family being around, things like that. And,
Yeah.
you put the same amount of time in as you do as if you're on location. So, um, again, you're just not seeing anybody. You're just all in work. It's all you talk about, because when you make a film, it's like, I equate it to painting a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it's a masterpiece, but painting a large painting or making a large collage with a group of people. And as you know, if you have an art background, it's an emotional thing. So if you're in it and you're creating, you have to stay with it. You can't just like, it's really difficult to put it aside and come back to it in the same place the next day. You
Yeah.
kind of have to finish the artistic thought. You have to, you have to get it down on paper, or you have to get it down on a piece of, put a piece of a garment together, or you just have to conceptualize it somehow, and probably actualize it somehow before you can walk away from it, or you lose it. You lose your it's like losing your train of thought when you're speaking, like I do. You kind of lose the momentum, and you don't
Yeah.
want to do that because you're trying to create this with a group of people. So when you're in it, you're all in. Even if you go home at the end of the day, you're, film days are 12 hours. So, and they're often more when we're shooting. So, and they're often weekends as well. It's because you're in it, you're creating it, there's timelines, plus the creative process. So it's good to take time off, I guess, is my point. And after them finish the project I'm on, I have, fingers crossed, I follow through with this. I'm taking 3 months off. Yes. And my crew is yes, because you know burnout's a real thing for film people. It's a real thing. I don't want to, diminish anybody else who in any other industry works these kind of hours, but it's an intensely creative process on top of a schedule that's really tough on you physically and mentally. And you're pretty wasted by the end of it. I think by the end of The Last of Us, uh, but also when you get to the end of a project, producers and directors are starting to feel a time crunch because cast have other projects that they can't keep them longer,
Right.
or they
Yeah.
can only keep them for this much longer, or they're going to have to ask them to come back, and then you're juggling schedules with an actor who has another schedule that they're dealing with, and often multiple schedules. So and then crew that are leaving, or it's really the intenseness at the end of the project to get the project done is crazy. It's so there'll be a lot of second unit work on top of the main unit work. There's a lot of photo shoots that go on, gallery shoots that need to be done before cast leave town, or packing up a gallery shoot to send it off to Los Angeles or wherever they're doing it, if you're not shooting it there, and just organizing it. Yeah, the end is intense. It's intense.
And I think it's
There,
hard.
I'm at the end of what I'm on right now, so like we're in that moment of like the schedule changes in a heartbeat. At any moment, the schedule
Yeah.
will change, and I never know where I need to be or where I can be. So yeah,
I think it's hard as well.
it's like that.
You mentioned burnout. I think it's harder for creative people to turn off at the end of a day because, like you said, there is that even when you have time off
Yeah.
because you love what you
Yes.
do and it's art, like you said, it is so personal and it is such a
It's so personal.
it's hard
Yeah.
to disconnect from. So even though you say you have 3 months up or 3 months coming up to you, will they be off or
Yes.
will you be working on something else or
Yeah.
saying I'll
That's right.
just you know?
That's right. Whatever I'm doing next will start to be, you have to start,
Mm,
you have to kind of take, as you were saying, you have to take when the inspiration hits, you have to embrace it.
yeah.
So can't say I'm taking 3 months off so I cannot embrace any of the inspiration that might come to me while I'm walking down the street, because my 3 months isn't up yet. You just have to take it as it comes, and you've got to
Yeah.
put it down, and you've got to put it somewhere where you remember it. So whether that's an illustration, or whether that's in words, or whether it's a collage you start building on your wall, or whether it's just kind of spitballing and talking to someone else on your crew, or the production designer, or whomever else, it's something that starts building in you, um, kind of almost immediately the moment you're going to be doing something,
Yeah.
or even before, because before I have a meeting with anyone on a project, I have to read the script. I have to do a mood board or get some illustrations done. I have to come in with a pitch. So if I do that, and the next project I may be on might not be starting up for another 3 months or 6 months, already previous to that, I've got to, and then if I do get the show, then I've got it. I've got this concept that's growing in my creative being, and and then it stays with you, and you think about it every day. And I mean, that's the beauty of it as well. You know, it's like, as you say, it's like painting. It's like seeing something being sparked by something, and you might not actually get that painting happening for months, but it may happen the next day. So you just kind of have to take it when it comes.
Yeah, once the idea
And
is
then you
planted, you
have,
go.
yes. And then the idea of, you're working for someone else. So this is a commission, if you will. So there's the anxiety of that. Did they really love that? What did they say about that? Did they really do? I wonder if they meant that or this. Oh no, they hated it.
I
Oh
hate
my
that. I am that
God,
exact
they hated.
kind of person too. I hate that. I know exactly
I've
what you're
got to come
talking
up with some
about.
other options. Oh my gosh, yeah. It's like any artistic process, any medium, any, even, I don't know, anything that you are doing artistically for someone else comes with a lot of ego, because it's coming from you personally. And it's not yours at the end of the day either. It's because you are collaborating with people, you are creating something with a group of people. It's
Mm,
your part of the input, and of what this picture is going to look like. And you have to have guts. You got to be gutsy and go out and say something, or pitch something that actually might not have anything to do with costumes, but at the end of the day, I'm seeing how my costume is going to fit into that set or that scene, or what the actor's going to say. And so I might pitch something that actually might affect another department more than me. You have to be gentle with that, because you don't want to be
yeah.
stepping on anyone's toes, but you also want to be a part of the process and feel like, the other department heads will be able to, come to you or say something to you that makes it feel like a collaborative process. And you have to give
Mm,
it over. You can't own it. You can't own it. It's because you have to make it together. So even though I can say this is the costume I created for Joel, really my inspiration came from the game, came from Pedro, came from Craig Mason's idea of what he wanted Joel to be doing in the game, how he wanted it to reflect the game, but also have its own life.
mm,
Joel's look, where the story is going to go um, in the series, where it doesn't go in the game, because now we have the opportunity to add more stories, more characters. So you know, yeah, it's a huge collaboration. It's a huge picture you're painting for the director and producers, the network, with all of these other people. And it's I think as you grow older in the industry, and as you become more mature in the industry, you learn to put your ego over there. You still need it, because I don't think you can be an artist without ego. I don't see how one can be without the other, because it's you that's putting something out there. So that's ego. And but to put the ego aside at times, when to use your ego, when to kind of um, back off altogether,
mm.
because maybe your great idea doesn't fit with anybody else's idea of how this scene is going to look. So, and not go home and just be devastated by that. It's a learning process without, and it's a learning process within, I think, um, in many aspects of life and other businesses, but in the film industry, which is really all I can speak to, because it's all I've ever really done as an adult. um, you really have to learn how to be a productive part of a bigger team, and be able to just switch it up and move, because all of a sudden things are going to change, and it's going to have nothing to do with you and nothing to do with what you've created so far, because they've rewritten the scene, and now we're not in this place anymore, or the location they found for this scene isn't what they were looking for, but they love it. So they're going to rejig the writing so that we can fit it into this town. And then all of a sudden it's not winter anymore, it's spring. So that changes everything. So you have to really be able to put your ego aside, not be too attached to things because anything could change at any moment. And you've just got to go with it. You've got to find a way to go with it. That's
It sounds like a real balancing act and an act of like you said, putting the ego aside, but also trusting, trying to trust your
trusting.
collaborators.
Oh,
But that's
yes.
difficult when it comes to art too, because like you said, if you have a vision, if you have something that you feel so strong
Mm-hmm.
about,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
I think as an artist, if you're working, let's say visual art, so painters, uh, muralists, if you're, I think, I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think when you're working as a totally as an individual, putting pieces of art out into the world, it's self-expression at its core and at its best. It takes a lot of nerve and it takes a lot of self-trust and it takes a lot of just being able to take criticism, constructive or otherwise, and not let it ruin you, not let it change you, and not let it change where you're coming from. But also, maybe it can guide you. Constructive criticism is always a great guide because I think in anything that we do in life, we're always changing as human beings if we can. That's the beauty of it. If we have the opportunity and we live in a place that can nurture us as individuals, if we're so lucky, to be able to take constructive criticism, to put that into our art and what we do. Um, Maybe it will change it, maybe it won't, but it might change our thinking and our what's the right word, our trust in ourselves to be able to put our own things out in the world and just say, well, this is me and this is it and this is my art.
Yeah.
This is what my art means to me and what I'm trying to say. And you'll always have an audience. Sometimes it's more commercial and it's a huge audience, and sometimes it's a collective few. And as we all know, arts like dance it's a tough medium. It's I you've got to find your patrons, I guess.
Yeah.
If you want to live by your art or find another way to support your art, I guess is also something.
That's another balancing
Um,
act entirely.
Another,
That's a different
yes,
balancing
very
act
much.
altogether.
Yes.
One final question, and this is a big one,
Yes.
and I'd hate to be
Okay.
asked this. You've done so many projects, you've such a wide variety of things that you've worked on, achievements. What can you pinpoint career wise? What can you pinpoint as being your absolute proudest moment so far?
There's more than one, so maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm lucky. And that's a hard. Oh, choosing one of anything is always hard, I think, for anybody. But one is Lemony Snicket. I will
Yes.
forever, ever, forever. Another amazing collaboration for me with the creative producer and writer Barry Sonnenfeld and Rose Lamb, who took me into that project. Barry's another crazy genius. He knows he's got it in his head. He sees it. If he doesn't see it, he will see it, and he's great at collaborating. And I think Lemony Snicket for me was. Obviously the costumes were super fun to work on, incredibly fun to work on, amazing actors to work with. Neil Patrick Harris and Lucy Punch and everybody else that worked on the kids that worked on that show, just incredible. That was an incredible creative process that was nonstop, super hard, 24 hours a day for 2.5 years. Um, I that really put me in a place creatively where I don't want to say I was working towards it because I don't know that I actually still maybe don't know what I'm working towards. I'm working and trying to be within it and be with it, whatever comes up. But that was a highlight of my career, Lemony Snicket. And then the process and the outcome of The Last of Us, which was a project at the very beginning that I wasn't sure I wanted to do because basically, and I've said this, it's a jeans and t-shirt show. Even though we've got creatures and we've got great story, um, great humanity, it was a jeans and t-shirts show, but Craig Mazin sold it to me in that it was a love story to humanity, a love story. And I really had to think about that because, when we think of a love story, we think of a traditional love story
Yeah.
between human beings.
Yeah.
And this was a love story to humanity in its biggest sense of the word, while the world was going through a pandemic, while another horrific war started. And to do that during all this real life um, reality was happening, I also didn't know if I wanted to do something that was so dire while we were living in this really terrible and really difficult time. But it intrigued me, the storytelling of it and the love letter to humanity that this Last of Us is, while we were experiencing as real human beings the same thing, intrigued me because I could tell from the writing that it was made to honor all of this that we live through. It was made to honor that we're all real humans. Our story may be fictional to some degree, but this is happening, and this has happened to most of us in some way, all of it. Um, and that we just got, that people get through it. People are resilient. People are, the core of us is love. If that sounds cheesy, I don't know, but the core of us is love driven and love for each other. We need more of it. We need
Absolutely.
more of it. And now I'm on my soapbox. We need more of it across all of humanity, for each other, for different cultures, religions, blah, blah, all
Yeah.
of that. There needs to be more respect for the earth, more respect for animals, more respect for that that if we're going to save this planet, we all globally have to come together to do it together.
Yep.
While we do that, while there's wars going on, is makes I don't know, but we have to find a way because we're we're destroying the planet. We're destroying us. We're going to destroy our legacy. So that's my soapbox. That's what The Last of Us gave us. Plus, now The Last of Us, obviously, when anything is successful, it validates all the hard work and all of everything that you've put into it, all the thought you've put into it. It means that people get it and are seeing it, and all the finite details, as you pointed out, which I so appreciate. It's the ultimate of filmmaking. It's the ultimate reward of filmmaking. Even though it was a jeans and t-shirt show, it resonated with so many people who were not attached to the game, who had never heard of it before, who who were willing to watch a
Mm.
real tough subject matter during these really dark times, these really difficult times. Um, so hopefully people are getting some kind of, you know, resurgence of hope, um, even just from the game, from this show, which is, I don't know, maybe I don't know. That's what I got from this. I'd say these two shows were probably highlights for me in the industry. Getting to work with some of the same people that I started with on my first film ever, almost 30 years ago, to now was also a highlight for me. Um, and yeah, that's again a long answer
I love
to
long
your question.
answers. I love listening to people speak when they're so passionate and it pours out of you. You can see that you love what you do. It's
I
it's
do.
it's funny that you mentioned Lemony Snicket, Series of Unfortunate Events, because that was one of my favorite book series growing up. I was a huge book nerd, and The Last of Us, like you said about it being, it's a weird time. I wasn't sure if I was gonna watch it or not because the times
Yeah,
and the last few years have been
yeah,
rough. But
totally.
the game I played with my baby brother. He's not a baby. He's 18, but at the time, um, the game came out and it was new and he wanted to play it and he was very young. He was only about 8 or 9, so my mom wouldn't let him. So being the big sister, I was told, sit him up on the bed beside you, play it for him, and tell him cover his eyes when it gets too scary, which we did. So that's what The
Aw.
Last of Us is for me. So then when the show came out, my brother comes running up to me and is like, "Did you hear what they're making?" And I was like, I'm really excited, but I don't know. But like you said, the core of this show is love. It's at the base of every decision that the characters make, the cast and crew, everything down to the soundtrack. You know,
Yes. Oh my gosh, the soundtrack on episode 3.
oh, stop it.
I
I
will
know.
never,
Oh, I
I
know.
will never get long, long time out of my head. And now every time I was actually a big fan of Linda Ronstadt anyway. Like she's a part of the music from my young generation.
Yeah.
So I just I so when but now it's like forever ingrained in, and every time I hear it now it's I a tear comes. Like how can it not?
I
It's
prefer
just
his version. I actually
yeah.
prefer his version. The soundtrack dropped in, I think it was New Zealand, 12 hours before it dropped in
Yes,
Ireland. So I remember seeing on
yes.
Twitter, everyone was like, the soundtrack is out. And I'm sitting here on Apple Music going, no, it's not. I don't have it yet. So I had to wait until the following morning, and I was in the middle of doing videos. I stopped everything when I saw it was up, and I was like, right, we need to add to library, download. His version of that song is haunting. And it's,
So haunting.
I don't
So haunting.
I don't know what it is about this show, and I've made so many videos on it at this point, and I've talked to so many different people about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the care and the love that's put into it, and that comes out of it. And same with the viewers too. If you talk to the viewers of the show who are super passionate, it is just like a big love fest. I
Super
love
passionate.
it.
It
Yeah,
is, yeah, it is, and so great because the subject matter is dire
it's
and
pretty dark.
you know,
Yeah,
it's pretty dark but but I mean, so well, Craig Mazin did exactly what he set out to do. He
mm,
created something that would bring people together on the basis of a love story to humanity and to break it all down into that's where the conversation, that's the basis of the conversation.
yeah.
And I mean, wow, mission accomplished.
Yeah,
Just
I want to say thank you because I know how much effort, I know how many late nights, how many stressful days, hair pulling, crying to yourself in the bathroom moments. I know. So I just want to
lots
thank
of
you
tears.
so much for putting all that love and effort in. It is so
Oh,
appreciated. It really is.
thank you.
And
Thank you. Thank you from me and my team and my costume team, and then all of the other collaborators on the show, all the other departments. But, I 100% only as good as the team I have behind me. And,
mm,
at one point we grew to 60 people in the costume department, which is a very large costume department. And people came from all across the country to work on the show. Some because they were fans, but a lot of them because as the momentum of the show started, and the chit chat about where, the production value and just the
yeah,
production in general and what was being made, people just wanted to join in. And people came from everywhere to work on the show in my department and all the other departments. And I just want to thank them because I wouldn't be able to talk about it right now. It would have been too traumatizing. I did have a fabulous, amazing, talented group of artists behind me, helping me in making these decisions and creating these amazing costumes. So, and Barry Gower, who's UK based, Barry Gower, the makeup effects team. Oh my
oh yeah,
gosh, what a dream team to work with because we had to work so closely creating the infected and the clickers with their team, with his team. So I mean, obviously we know that he's a genius
yeah.
from all his past work on this show, but yeah, couldn't have done it with all these great people in the props department. So yeah,
So much talent wrapped up into one little show.
that's right.
Wow.
That's right, and that is right. So much talent,
Yeah.
so many people. Yeah, so many people. So in the middle of nowhere. Well, Calgary's not nowhere, but to bring globally this many people together in a smaller city was a great place to be. It was a perfect place for it to all be made. So
I can't imagine. I can't imagine the stress that it would have taken to have that many cast and crew in one place, in one setting, one situation. Everybody, the ideas bouncing off each other, and the stress bouncing off each other.
yeah,
But it's
yeah.
it's certainly
You
paid
got to
off.
remember too. Yeah, you got to remember too. A lot of the crew that did come from everywhere to be there
Mm,
were there for a long time. So you're used to kind of being able to go home at the end of the day, and unfortunately, it's not one of those businesses that you can work in where you can just leave it on your desk or leave it at the office kind of thing. It's with you 24/7, and you kind of have to learn to not download onto your family members everything that happened at work today, but you kind of
Yeah.
have to a little bit. So a lot of the people that were working on this show didn't have that, because a lot of people were away from home and away from family and
Oh
friends.
yeah.
And, you're dead tired at the end of the day, and it's a long day, whether you're working days or nights. And so a lot of crew went home with kind of like nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
So we did it. And you find your people, and you find your ways to deal and everything. And a lot of self-reflecting, I think, for a lot of people that came onto this show that left home to come and do it. So
And a lot of emotionally
the
dumping
good
on
and bad.
your crewmates.
Yes.
It's just, yeah, what you said earlier
Exactly.
about that after a long day you need to kind of detangle, or maybe you need to vent at family members. I've been doing,
Mm-hmm.
it's not the same extent at all, but I've been doing YouTube for a few years, and I've talked to a few cast and crew from other shows, and in preparation for it I always get my questions ready, sit my mother down at the table, and I'm like, now ma'am, I'm gonna go through this like you're the person, okay? So I totally get that, having to lean on people during times.
Thank God for family members, because they will sit down and listen to this, whether your mother's into what you do or not. She will, or maybe she loves what you do, but
Yeah.
she will sit down. Like, she'll be the guinea pig for you. Yeah.
For sure. Sit down with a cup of tea. There's nothing that a cup of tea and a chat cannot fix. But yeah, that is it for the questions. Thank you so much for
Yay.
trudging through this with me. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I love getting to speak
Me
to
too.
people who love what they do, and it's clear that you just radiate it, and I love it. It's fascinating.
Oh, thanks, Kate. You too. Same for you. And I'm sure that you know this, but um, it's the same on this side of the interview. Um, it's hard to speak with people who either aren't prepared, that doesn't happen that often, or just are doing it because it's more of a business than a passion, I guess.
Yeah.
And really hard to be interviewed by that way,
Yeah.
because I wouldn't be talking this much if you weren't so invested in it, and you weren't so prepared, and you weren't so into it. It because a lot of podcasting, especially podcasting, I think is a conversation.
Yeah.
It's a conversation, but we've come together to have a conversation on a topic. So, I obviously invested in the topic because the topic is about something that I did.
Mm.
But anyway, in any case, I'm rambling again. I just want to say you're fabulous. Thank you so much for being so amazing, and so great questions, and just so conversive. It's just, it's a, it's why I'm still on.
Thank you. That's wonderful
I
to
could talk
hear.
to you for another hour, I'm sure.
That is absolutely wonderful to hear. Thank you so much. Because like, it's the same on my end too. Because sometimes you get people who don't really want to speak, or they don't want to kind of get that dialogue going, and it's
Yeah.
difficult to talk, especially when you're nervous. Like I am, or at least I was at the beginning. It is difficult to kind of get that going when someone just, they're not into it. You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it happens, and sometimes it happens anyway, because sometimes, I don't know, the day started off wrong, or or a lot of times, as you know, we can't talk about things.
Yeah.
There's a lot we can't talk about until much later. So, um, it's all those things: timing, what's happening today, being ready, and then just rapport between two people. So, so I like you.
The feeling is very mutual. I'm delighted to hear it. Um, it was a long shot reaching out to you. I thought I'd get no answer or be left on red, and I'm like, that's totally fine. Like I said, I love the behind the scenes work. I won't say
Yeah.
more.
Oh,
I
that's
love it
great.
on the same level as a project. So getting to talk to you and hear your stories it's been absolutely amazing. It's made my week. But yeah,
Great. Yay.
yeah.
That makes my week, because I'm still, we finished the show last July, so we're
Mm,
almost coming up on close to 10 months of being done the show. So it's nice to be able to talk about it, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate podcasters and things that which we didn't always have before. It's nice to talk on this kind of platform. It's a little more, a little more informal. It's
yeah.
not a panel. We can just kind of get down to the nitty gritty. And after being, away from the project for this long,
Mm,
I wouldn't say I have a different view, but it's kind of think some things have like sunk in and gone away, and some things have surfaced in
Yeah.
that I forgot about, or processes or things that happened, or just the way I feel about it. Because I think once you finish something that is that big, um, yeah, you need time with it, because you're just a lot of times, especially as I was saying before, near the end, you're just it's like a snowball effect, just trying to get to the end and get it done, and
Yeah.
still, keep the integrity of what you're doing, but get it done, get it done. So by the time you're done, so much has been happening. It's just been a whirligig of everything. And um, to be able to talk about it after is nice, because things have settled and make more sense. And
And you've
some
heard the
things,
response as well, because you said you finished last July,
yeah,
but now
yeah.
you can look at it a different way too, because you've seen the world respond to the show and react to the show.
That's right. That's right. And it almost manifests a little bit differently in some ways
Mm.
as well for me, because of the resonation from the rest of the world and their eye on it and their view on it. And sometimes I think sometimes you do things uh, and you have an intention, when you're creating something, you have an intention, but because you're doing it quickly, or you're making a decision in the moment because you have to make the decision now, there's a lot of subliminal intent that you're not really even aware of within you when you're creating this piece, when you're creating something. And sometimes when you get to sit back and reflect on it and have other people reflect on it, you know, you you get to see where your intention came from, if that makes sense. That's kind of a ramble, but you get to see, oh yeah, I didn't actually consciously think that, but I was feeling that, and we followed through on the intent of that feeling, and it's become a part of the creation of this. And someone is just voicing it now. Someone has seen it and voicing it, and it's like an epiphany. It's like an aha moment of, oh yeah, like I meant it. I didn't say it, or didn't go out and say, I mean this,
Yeah.
but I meant it deep down, and it's manifested. So that's kind of awesome.
And sometimes you
So
need to step away as well to see the bigger picture. Like you said, step back
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we see dailies every day, the department heads do, of what we've shot. And all the process up to the moment of shooting things
Hmm.
is a collaboration and spitballing and testing and trying on, and breakdown, and sometimes stuff happens at the last minute. So that means that a producer may not see that last bit of breakdown that's happened on a caller, but you've
Hmm.
agreed to do it, so they only see it when it happens. And then so you haven't seen it in the environment, and the environment sometimes changes. So when you see the daily is when you get to see it all together, except it's not color timed, it doesn't have music. um, there's the sound isn't tuned properly a lot of
Yeah.
the time, like they haven't finished all of those elements because that's all post. So you kind of still have to kind of, but you see it for the first time in its kind of real bare bones moment. Um, and it's kind of awe-inspiring. But later, when it's got all the music and it's color timed and it's everything has happened, it's really great. It's sometimes not. Sometimes you're like, what? Oh my God, that purple is pink. It's purple, but it looks pink. Oh my gosh. So yeah. So Last of Us, and a lot of my other projects, but Last of Us at least is the most immediate thing that I've done. Is so gratifying on so many levels. It came out more than I expected it to, from a costume point of view,
I can't
as
imagine
part of,
can't imagine the
yeah.
pride of like that seeing your baby on the screen. It's done, it's all
Oh
complete,
yes.
post is done,
I,
everyone can see it.
that's funny, because I haven't used that analogy for a long time, but I would often say, we do creating. It's like being pregnant. You
Yeah.
do all this creating, you're making something, and then you have the fitting with the actor, you get it all done and approved, and you birth the thing and it goes off, and you really don't see it
Yeah.
until it's like a tween, even like a teenager, because all of this other process happens to it after the fact. And yeah, you don't see it till much, much later. So it's kind of like, going through the process and then putting it out into the world and keeping your fingers crossed. Yeah.
It's a fantastic analogy. I love that.
Thanks for having me. and and I don't know. Let's do it again sometime.
I would be more than down for that. Absolutely. Thank
Okay.
you for being here and for chatting. I appreciate it so,
Yes.
so much. And best of luck in your future projects. I was going to say I will be following, but that sounds very stalkerish. You know what I'm saying. I will be following and supporting.
Yes. Same. Same, exactly the same. And in the email, send me your address where I can send this thing to you because I appreciate your collector, uh, amazing collection you have behind you. So,
That's only
and I,
half. That's what you see on camera. There's a whole behind. I just love things. That's amazing. Thank you so
yeah.
much. I really appreciate
Oh,
that. Um,
my pleasure.
but
My
yeah,
pleasure.
I'll send that on to
I
you in a
appreciate it.
bit. Thank you very much for chatting and
Great.
hanging,
Okay.
and best of
Thank you,
luck.
Kate.
Not a bother at
Yes,
all.
thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye. So yeah, that is it for the chat with the wonderful Cynthia Summers. You guys, you saw what a wonderful lady she is, how expressive and into her art she is. And I love it. I love that shit. I love getting to talk to people like that. It was that was amazing. That was one of my favorite videos I've done in a while. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, thank you so much to Cynthia for sitting and talking and chatting and sharing fascinating little bits of information and little tidbits. Yeah, I love talking to people. I love getting to sit down and do these types of videos. And these are harder to do than regular videos because with regular videos I'm just dealing with myself, and I'm kind of hard to round up and sit down in front of a camera also. Yes, I'm not going to deny it. But like I don't know, these style of videos are so much more difficult to do because of the preparation that goes into them, trying to first of all connect with somebody, see if you guys vibe, if it's a yes, if you decide to move forward and do the chat or the interview, and then it's a process. And I love it. I love doing this style of video. This is probably what I would like to move into in the future. I just love getting to talk to people, hear people speak about what it is that they love, about their experiences, getting to hear different takes from different people from all over the world. So yeah, I don't know. Anytime I get to do something like this, I just feel so fucking lucky. And yeah. But yeah, as I said at the beginning of the video, the link to my Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, anywhere you guys could find me is down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did partaking in it. Yeah, it was amazing. She's an absolute ray of sunshine. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you all soon.